Y'all, today we need to talk about a topic that a bunch of people have been wanting me to weigh in on, and that is the current state of packs in Wizard101 in the year 2024. Now, there's a lot of returning players these days, especially because they've had a lot of free membership periods recently, but over the past few years, packs have had an almost complete overhaul for good and sometimes for bad. And today I wanted to talk about how far Wiz has come and what they could do a lot better to just make packs better for players. So let's talk about the issue that people have, right? Let's say that you either want to get into PvP or you want the highest damage setup in Wizard101. Compared to previous years, most of the gear that you can actually get for packs, you can get it without doing it. However, in the cases of some packs like the Fairy Kai Horde pack, you have to raid instead of opening the packs. In the case of the Spellman Packs, even though they're super cheap and give you school specific drops, you have to spend dozens of hours opening chests or farming bosses to get the Spellman, so you can basically speed run by buying this pack. And perhaps the worst offender of them all, if you do want to run the highest damage PvE setup, or you just want to run a gear set pet in order to pad your stats at max level, gear set mounts and stat mounts are still only exclusively gettable by spending tons of crowns, and in the case of gear set mounts, you don't have any guarantee of getting the exact mount that you want. So while I do want to acknowledge that, for most of the gear that you are talking about, right, stuff that you're not, buying packs to not raid for, opening so you don't have to farm Spellmans for, or opening because there's no other option, the vast majority of everything else you can actually farm for pretty reasonably. This includes at max level the Reaver set, the Stalker set, it includes the Sage set, includes the Wastelander set, and it even includes the Plot Armor set. These are all max level, extremely competitive, level 170 pieces of gear. This is something to celebrate, right? This is all stuff that you would have had to open packs for, maybe with one or two exceptions before. But it's a stuff that still remains to be way too pay to win that I wanted to talk about in this video, because I still think it's way too much. For people that are confused about why you would open up a primable pack, for example, for a gear set mount, they work in a very simple way. If you have two pieces of one of the three sets in this pack, you can basically get extra damage essentially for free. And you're probably wondering, oh, so the mount is only one of the two pieces? What's the other piece? Aren't you giving up stats with that? You'd be right if the pet that's a part of this set also, didn't count for it. But basically, the meta right now, right? Let's say that you want max damage on a storm. Not only do you want all damage talents, on your pet, but you also want it on a pet where if you run a specific mount from the pack, you can get even more bonus damage. In the case of Storm, you get 6 extra damage for making this max damage pet on this pet and running this mount. However, you can only get this mount by opening up packs. There's no pity system. You could open up 5 packs and get it. You could open up hundreds of packs and not get it. And while there's plenty of ways to add damage with circle jewels, this is still a pretty serious problem, especially when it comes to even more competitive things. Like PvP, for example, there are people that are missing out on potentially the best stats because they just can't get a mount that, they could spend an exorbitant amount and not get. I think there's a very simple solution to this. Anytime a mount is part of a gear set that gives stats, or just gives stats on its own and you can open it from a pack, also make it buyable for crowns at a much larger price than an individual pack. I don't exactly know the ins and outs of the way KingsIsle values packs in general, but what I'm gonna assume is that they put a certain amount of labor into making the pack, work into making the art for it, work into designing the outcomes of it for the player. And what I very much assume is that they take, a calculation on how much work what they put into it, get a return on investment that they want out of the pack, and that's how the pack is designed. So why not take that expected, return that you want out of the pack and also just get some of that just by selling the mount alone? Considering how many crowns I've seen people spend for this mount, why not just have a Chompy Bronto permanent mount in the crown shop for you could even make it like 15,000 crowns. I guarantee people would buy it. Do I think 15,000 is too high? I honestly don't know. I think KingsIsle has much better data than a normal player on what a player can be expected to spend. But what I know is that they're not expecting players to open up a potentially endless number of packs for a mount. Even they can probably admit that that's unfair to the player. I'm honestly very confused why they don't just reskin stat mounts every time they put out a new mount. Like, why not add, to the Wizard's first clunker mount, why not add 2 Pierce so you could run this or a Clockwork Courser? I'm confused why they don't tack on stats to all of these mounts, because if a stat giving mount is going to be pay to win to begin with, why not put it on every mount that they put out so that more people will buy the stuff that they put out that's new? They can already do that now, and I don't see any reality where that wouldn't improve the sale of mounts in the crown shop, right? Like, maybe you have a Clockwork Courser, gives 2 Pierce, you see a mount that looks way cooler to you than the Clockwork Courser, you might buy another Pierce mount down the line. Why not not do that instead of making it one, inaccessible, and two, sometimes gatekept behind packs? Now, in terms of the other things that I mentioned, I still think there are some big offenders when it comes to packs where you pay to just save way too much time to the point where it just feels unreasonable. I think one category are Spellman Packs. What I think they need to start doing is, anytime you do any sort of side activity, you should have a chance of getting Spellmans. If I'm fishing, I should have a chance of getting a Spellman with my fish. If I'm PvPing, if I'm competing in a tournament, if I'm gardening, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm doing something that involves spending time on the game, there should be a chance of getting Spellmans as a result. So you could passively, by doing anything that you feel interested in doing, you can get Spellmans. I'll say this as someone that max tiered almost every Spellman without actually opening packs, with some exceptions, but barely any. Most of this was tedious and repetitive, and I feel like I could have spent the exact same amount of time not doing tedious and repetitive things, maybe diversifying the activities that I was doing, maybe getting other rewards, like, you know, if I'm fishing, at least I'm getting some gold. Maybe I'm opening some badges, maybe I'm unlocking some recipes to use the fish on. I don't know. Right now, to me, the reason these packs feel stupid is because, yeah, they're a great source of Spellmans, totally worth the money, by the way, if you're trying to save effort. It's just the alternative is dozens of hours of opening chests or farming bosses for single-digit Spellman drops if you're lucky enough to get the school of the Spellman you want. It's just so unreasonable that I don't really see how anyone could reasonably expect to max tier their Spellmans without opening up a lot of packs, unless they literally stream the game like I do. And finally, now that we've addressed stuff that you can only get from packs like gear set mounts, stuff that you can get from packs that literally eliminate dozens of hours of pointless grinding, I still think one thing that they have started to make progress on, which is good, but still haven't really gotten right in my opinion, is gear that you can either raid for or open up packs for. Now, it seems like the majority of the community that doesn't want to raid, they're very happy with this specific pack, right? Because you can get raid gear without raiding. And while that's great and all, let's say that you want a PvP, now it seems like you either need to raid or you need to spend crown. And to me, that still doesn't really feel that perfect. Maybe there's a little nitpicky, but what I would like is if they could add item cards to the actual raid gear and the pack gear that's pretty competitive, and have a way to get the raid gear without item cards, maybe without like a sword pin or something, you know, maybe without like some of the things that make it good, like a tier 2 version, something that's more than enough to PvP with, but maybe not enough to get the most perfect stats. I think that's what they need to do with specifically raid gear that you could open up packs for. Make a tier 2 version that maybe you could earn from PvP. Make it so it has like fewer sword pins, so it's like harder to dual school with, but you can still play for the most part. I think working with number of pins and like item cards and stuff, I would love to see them experiment with that so they can keep the value of raiding, keep the value of maybe opening a pack for raid gear, but don't just shut out people from PvP off of something that meaningless, right? I think that's what I would love to see. All in all, y'all, they've definitely made a lot of progress on how oppressive packs are. Obviously, there's still progress to be made. At the end of the day, I hope what happens is that there's just more options for players, especially when it comes to spending money, to not spend too much time, especially if that's how they value things. And obviously, what should not be lost in the condo, I hope Wiz still makes money off of things like packs as long as it doesn't feel predatory. I really hope they prioritize Spellmans from packs, gear set mounts, and stat mounts from, like, you know, packs, how they treat raid gear with packs. I think these are the 3 big issues that if they could get right, I feel like public opinion on the way crowns are spent on this game would be better. I think player happiness would be higher. But this is something that I've seen a lot of people talk about recently, so I wanted to weigh in on what I think they could do, hopefully offer some solutions that they could try. Let me know what you guys think of, you know, specifically what I said, specifically what you would want to see them do with packs. I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.